Hello, I'm Marcus Railton, and welcome back to the second series of the ScotsCare podcast. ScotsCare is the only charity dedicated to helping disadvantaged Scots in London through a range of support, including financial grants, advocacy, counselling and sheltered housing for older Scots, job coaching, social events, befriending and support for children and families. The charity's been running for 400 years to help break the cycle of poverty experienced by some Scots. In the new series, I'll be chatting with guests from all walks of life, from celebrities and authors, athletes and actors, business entrepreneurs to academics, all with one thing in common: Scots heritage, and they enjoy a good blether. Going to start today with a bit of a confession. The ScotsCare podcast guest this week is actually from Yorkshire, but she has lived north of the border for so many years, I think she has earned honorary Scot status. You can hear it in her accent throughout our chat. She is Ruth Devlin. She is an educator who specialises in the menopause. Ruth has been on my radar for a while now, professionally and personally. I've wanted to chat with her about the menopause for almost a year, can you believe? In our talk, we covered symptoms, physical and psychological. We chatted about work environments and what they're doing to improve and to implement menopause policies. And we chat about a great book she wrote called Men, Let's Talk Menopause. We had a bit of a stuttering start to the podcast. None of us could get the Zoom to work, the technicalities of it beyond both of us. Finally, our combined knowledge led us to turn it off and turn it back on again, and that seemed to eradicate the gremlins. So here we go on the ScotsCare podcast with Ruth Devlin.
ScotsCare.
Aha, there you are. Sorry, I thought IT was going to get the better of us, Ruth. But it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
I don't know what I was doing wrong there. I think, I'm just, my technical ability kind of begins and ends at pressing the Zoom button to connect. Anything more complex than that, and I'm a bit done, I'm afraid.
Well, no, I'm the same. So don't worry about it.
That was a perfect storm of 4 tries before. But you know what?
I love that.
I can see you now and I can hear you perfectly. Who knows if we're recording? But we'll have a chat.
Well, it says it's recording.
We'll have a chat anyway. Now, we've met a few times before, professionally and personally. But for anyone listening who doesn't know who you are and what you do, could you explain? And then, do you know what? I was just about to use the word expertise, and I know you don't like the word expert, but could you explain what you do?
Okay, thanks very much for inviting me on to start with, Marcus. Lovely to see you. What I do is basically educate. So I set up Let's Talk Menopause to be able to provide accurate and evidence-based information to people right across all sectors, which is what we do every week. And so it's a balance, very much we take a balanced view. There's no bias in any particular direction, which means that, people can trust the information they're getting and know that, we're not going to push anything down their throats, basically. So our main aim is that we get as much information out there to people. People get as much information on board so that they can make their own informed decisions and can hopefully help some people to motivate themselves to self-manage their symptoms as well.
When I was looking at the website, Let's Talk Menopause, it says right at the top, it says, the object is to raise awareness and provide accurate information. Do you think there's information out there, or there has been information out there that is less than accurate?
Oh, you get, you have to be very careful here, Marcus. There's a lot of people doing what I do. And you're absolutely right. I would never call myself a menopause expert, just to go back to what you said at the start, because I just think there are very, very few experts in this world. I would call myself an educator who specialises in education on the menopause. Likewise, I'm a nurse as well. So I think, there's so many people educating out there. I think you can get your knickers in a twist if you try and discuss this topic, really, which isn't answering your question at all. But raising awareness is one thing, then provide it, and that's brilliant. So we've got a certain cohort of celebrities who are going through this stage of their lives at the moment who are doing an absolutely fantastic job at raising awareness. And that's brilliant. It's putting at the forefront of everybody's attention. That's wonderful. And then you get people who are just educators, but sometimes the two don't marry.
But
so that's sitting on the fence, Marcus.
No. That's a good kicking off point for us, because you're right. There has been, I don't know what the collective noun would be for, a kind of a glut of celebrities, but in the last couple of years we have seen a lot of people like Davina McCall and Lisa Snowdon. But this is kind of the first generation of celebrity women that have come out and kind of embraced the subject and kind of broken the taboo and spoken about it. And when I was thinking about chatting to you last night, I was thinking about when we're at school, we learn about periods and where we learn about pregnancy as we get a little bit older in school, but we don't really learn. There's no formalized education about the menopause. So I suspect, and I know, Ruth, I'm a man talking to a woman about a female subject, but I suspect a lot of women come to this with a great deal of ignorance, a great deal of or no education about it, because the education has not been formalized.
Yeah, you're quite right. And I think it doesn't matter what gender you are, the menopause is often not at the forefront of people's brains when they're going through their teenage years and into their early 20s and 30s, because it's not hit them. And I think that's the same with any topic, though. If you're not interested in having children, you're not going to research about pregnancy and breastfeeding. And, if you're having problems with fertility levels and things like that, that's when you start researching that topic. And I think that's the thing about the menopause, is a lot of people associate the menopause with, I often say, little grey-haired grannies, tottering around on Zimmer frames. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because we've got a certain percentage of people who unfortunately fall into that premature menopausal bracket. So there's 1% roughly in the UK who are in that bracket at the moment. So that's people who are 40 years and under. So, which makes it even more important to get education out there as early as possible. But for the vast majority of people, a lot of people don't want to know about it, don't even think that they need to know about it. But if you can just start to creep in little nuggets of information from as early as possible, then I think that's beneficial for everybody.
Now, this is a strange question, but do you have any idea why now it has? I mean, obviously down to people like yourself, but why is there more of an awareness of it with, Davina McCall is the person who's really been championing it from the celebrity side of it? Why do you think now rather than before? Although I don't want to criticize something that's a good thing, but why now?
I basically don't know. I don't know why celebrities haven't done it before. I have no idea, but I think it is a really good thing. It just takes one person to take up that lead and think, right, we just need to know about this. And you have certain medics who have had a greater appearance on social media fronts. I think social media has definitely helped. There has been education on this topic for well over 30 years and before, and there's lots of people who are really brilliant at the educating who just haven't had the advantage of social media before in those years. So I think that plays a huge role.
Are you seeing it more being championed in the workplace? Because I'm a skeptical person by nature, and I see a lot of stuff about mental health, and I see a lot of stuff about the climate and recycling. And I see a lot of greenwashing and mental health. I don't know there must be a phrase for mental health washing. There must be a phrase for that. And I wonder if there is a bit of menopause washing as well, because I read a survey recently from the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, and they were saying 9 out of 10 women still feel they need more support in the workplace, and that only 25% of workplaces have a menopause policy.
Education within the workplace has massively improved since I first started doing this back in 2012. It's really, really improved. So many more organisations right across the board have got their policies on board. They've got the guidance notes on board. They provide the education for their staff, and it's gradually increasing every year. So I think, for me, from my perspective, I'm working with a more diverse range of organisations. So from, all the corporates through to the councils, lots of councils I work with NHS boards, loads of different bespoke companies as well. And they have one goal, and that is to help support their staff and particularly retain invaluable, talented staff, and try and help support them through this stage of their life. So I've seen a massive improvement, and anything like this can always be improved. There's always going to be those organisations who it's not been on their agenda before, but then, somebody takes the lead on it, and then they start getting themselves sorted out.
Can I ask you a basic question? And this is more from men that are listening, and we'll come on to, you wrote a great book. Was it last year you wrote your book? And that was aimed at men and how to look after partners and how to understand what their partners are going through. But can you talk to me about what symptoms women may experience physically and psychologically when they start to enter the menopause? Or should we start before that and talk about perimenopausal, that period in your life? Because that's a big, long period.
It is. First of all, I wrote my book in 2019. That's a long time ago, isn't it? I know.
Well, do you know what I always think about now, Ruth? I always think about, because of COVID, I think time has just got blasted in my head. So I always think, how long ago was that? And then I double it. And I think that's how I got a realistic figure on it.
I know, completely agree. It's all a blur since COVID, isn't it? There are numerous symptoms, as we know, and I think a lot of people get a little hazy about the perimenopausal stage and what menopause actually is. Menopause is this umbrella term, so you can only be classed as being fully menopausal when you've had 12 consecutive months of no bleeding after that last menstrual period, and before that you're in the perimenopausal stage. So when your estrogen levels start to decline and fluctuate, you start going into that perimenopausal stage, and that's the most symptomatic stage prior to becoming menopausal. So that's when you experience the vast majority of those symptoms, and symptoms can creep in for people without them realizing or attributing to how they're feeling to being in the menopause. So symptoms, like some of the psychological emotional ones, like low mood swings, irritability, raised levels of anger and rage, things like that can creep in, and you start to put these symptoms down to other things, other stresses in your lives, like maybe you've got teenage children, you may be looking after older parents, you're still working within the workplace, and you've got numerous balls that you're juggling, and it can be a stressful time of life. And then you get the menopause thrown into the balance as well, so it can become a little bit confusing for people as to why they're feeling like this. And it's only when other symptoms start to creep in, like maybe changes to their menstrual cycles, maybe joint aches, maybe they're getting bloating, problems with sleep, all these sorts of things start creeping in, that they start thinking, oh, hang on a minute, let's put two and two together. Maybe it's not just I'm irritable and I'm a crabby person. Maybe there is another reason why I'm experiencing these symptoms. And I think for some people that can almost be a relief to realize that, because it's not your fault that you're going through the menopause. And I think, a lot of people have to take that on board. You don't choose to go through the menopause. You don't choose to have your estrogen levels declining and fluctuating all over the place. And it can be a very confusing and distressing time for a lot of people if they're experiencing a lot of different symptoms. And that's one of the main things to point out, is that everybody does have their own individual experience of the menopause. Some people experience a huge amount of symptoms and have a horrendous time with debilitating symptoms. Other people sail through this period of their lives.
Social isolation is a growing and often unseen problem in big cities like London. ScotsCare's Blether Buddies programme matches a ScotsCare volunteer with a client in need of company for a weekly chat to help build back connections. If you think you're on your own in London, ScotsCare can change that. Don't suffer in silence. Talk to us at info@scotscare.com.
When people come to you, when you come to your talks or to your corporate, I was going to call them gigs, not really gigs, your corporate seminars, do you find there is a moment of realization from people that kind of the penny drops and goes, oh, this is what's happening to me, rather than, as you say, just thinking the slightly maybe losing the plot?
Oh no, definitely, yes. The penny definitely drops for a lot of people, and you almost feel you're seeing a sense of relief that passes across people's faces when they realise they're not going mad. And a lot of other people within the room, if you're doing a face-to-face one or if you're on a call, a lot of people realising that most people on that call are experiencing some of the same symptoms. So it can be a form of relief for a lot of people, definitely. But the more education you get on board, the more you understand it, and the more you understand why you're experiencing the symptoms. That's key. And then understanding how you can cope with those symptoms to a certain degree for yourself. And then if you need to get medication and further support on board, that is also available. But there's lots you can do yourselves, which is key to helping, giving you that sense of control back, which I think for a lot of people is lacking. And you can feel all at sea. Lots of people don't like the way their body's behaving. They don't feel like they're living in the same body for a lot of people. And it can be a really distressing time.
Which I totally understand. I think generally as a human being, once you start to get past 40 and you start to question your own mortality and your own validity and what your place is, and you might have had your kids and your kids are starting to get a bit older. And, from a male point of view, I'm in my 50s now, and I went through all of these things, questioning my place and thinking, am I ever going to work again? Am I going to do a job that means something to me? So to be going through that and then adding in, physical and other psychological menopause-related symptoms, I think is quite terrifying.
Well, yes, it can be. I wouldn't use the word terrifying. I think, can I just take a slant on this a minute? Because I think one problem with the topic of the menopause is there's so much doom and gloom and negativity that surrounds the menopause. Yes, it can be extraordinarily debilitating for a lot of people, but you have to see the positive sides of going through the menopause. And a lot of people will be shouting at your podcast now going, what does she mean? What is there positive about going through the menopause? How can you get anything positive about that? But you have to stop the whole doom and gloom and, saying there's loads of stigmas attached and it's a taboo topic. And yes, within the workplace, certain organizations do need to get their act together, but there's a huge amount of organizations who already have done and do brilliant work. But for each individual person, I'll go back to that. Get your information on board, start being proactive about your symptoms and how you cope with them. And then you can start to see the positivity moving forward, because there are positives to going through the menopause. For a lot of people, you actually start to get to understand how your body works and how your body's behaving. You start to really look after your body. You start to feed your body what it needs. So from a nutritional perspective, you start to be getting healthier. You maybe start to look at your alcohol content, your caffeine content. So moving forward into those postmenopausal years, you're going to have a better quality of life. So actually, if you look at it in a different way, it can be a positive time to have a really good look at your body, see what it needs, nourish it with what it needs. That's going to help all your coping with the symptoms. And the outcome is that in the postmenopausal years, you're in a better place.
I think your style is very kind of straight talking, but not top down. And I think you first came onto my radar because my wife Becky went to one of your talks, and and she's perimenopausal, and she is a professional person. And for a long time, she thought she was kind of losing her mind. She would suffer from brain fog, especially at work, and this affected her confidence. And, so this is obviously ongoing because, as you've kind of touched on, but a perimenopausal, that period, you can still be conceiving kids during that time. And you're heading towards the menopause, which is confusing. And for Becky and I, we've got a teenager, and you know what teenagers are like. So you're dealing with the mood swings of a teenager while you're perimenopausal. And I think this was this kind of perfect storm that my wife was going through before you kind of came on to the radar, and she went to one of your talks And it was just as you present things, that you're funny and blunt and uplifting. And she came back and she went, "Oh, you've got to meet this woman, Ruth Devlin. She's wonderful. She's changed so much." And she was much more positive. And so I wonder, how much time do you get to spend out on the road talking to real people?
Oh, not enough. That's very kind comments. And it was lovely to meet your wife, because I remember that. But yeah, I don't get enough time face to face. Since COVID, every organisation just about will want their talks online, which you can understand because it's a far greater reach. But it's fantastic to go out face to face. And we did a talk at the Royal Infirmary in Edinburgh last week, and brilliant to get out and about and meet people. And then you can really read people's body language more and interact just that little bit more. But no, you are right. I'm straight talking. I do come from Yorkshire, so I'm probably quite blunt. But if I'm doing men only talks, sometimes you'll get people saying, well, which are brilliant, by the way. So if you're in an organisation, you're listening, the way to get through to men and getting men on talks is provide men only talks, because they're really interactive, and you usually find that most people will hardly shut up. I can hardly get a word in edgeways because it's their one opportunity to ask all the questions they're scared to ask. So it's, a lot of people will say, oh gosh, maybe don't talk about this and this and this and in the men only talks. No, men need everything as well. They need to know why. You've got genitourinary symptoms, all the symptoms with the vagina and the vulva and the urinary system, because those are the symptoms that are going to impact on relationships. And, those are incredibly important. So, men get to know as much as the women on talks, all genders do.
Let me ask you, here's a kind of blunt question then. Do you think for real change to be effected, because last year, and here's another survey, it says Simply Health survey, it said 3.5 million women have considered quitting their job last year because of menopause symptoms. And I wonder, if you put it bluntly, are people like you underfunded? Do we actually need more legislation and more funding put into this to allow you to tour more and educate more?
Oh, definitely, Marcus. Thank you. Absolutely, definitely, yes. Somebody provide me with a lovely job, that'd be wonderful, instead of having to do it myself. That would be heaven. No, joking apart, absolutely, there needs to be more. I think for me, there needs to be more consistent education, more accessible education right across the board. But it's the consistency which is important, and making it comprehensive, so you're not just focusing on one thing like HRT or I don't know, herbs or something like that. You're focusing on what people can do for themselves. You're giving them the basic education as to why the symptoms are happening in the first place. That's important, so people understand, and then giving them all the different options that they can utilize to help themselves on an individual basis, and then explain about the medication and when to go for that. And a lot of people are so confused about so many different things, because the problem as well from a Google perspective is, yeah, absolutely wonderful, we've got social media, but it's so confusing because there's so many educators out there, there's so many menopausal sites, and it's a minefield. You think, right, which sites do I look at, which sites do I believe, who do I trust? And it's usually the people who have the biggest marketing behind them, unfortunately.
Well, this is the problem with anything on the internet, and I think, and I'm not trying to be flippant, but it's once you start going down that Google rabbit hole, everything either ends up in cancer or Adolf Hitler, and that's what terrifies me. Because as soon as you go, oh, do you know what? I've got a pain here or an ache there. Do not Google it. I think that's absolutely disastrous.
But on that note, you can't go wrong with looking at the Women's Health Concern website. That's the patient arm of the British Menopause Society. They don't pay me to advertise, by the way. You've got fantastic fact sheets on there, which are written by people specialising in this area. It's evidence-based, it's accurate. You've not just got one person writing those fact sheets, you've got a team of people. And that's the important thing. One person can't do something on their own. You need to have a team of people behind your fact sheets, which is really important. So I would focus on websites like that. If you're a medic who's listening, go to the British Menopause Society website, scroll down to Tools for Clinicians. You've got fantastic sheets on there, which are available for anybody to download. if you're worried about your prescribing, just go onto those sheets and find out the basic facts. It's all there. You just need to know where to find it. If you're wanting help with premature menopause, then look on the Daisy Network website. That's a fantastic supportive charity. If you're worried by one of your 5 gynae cancers, go onto the Eve Appeal website. That's another fantastic charity. They do enormous amounts of work, but it's just putting these things in front of people so that people can go, oh, brilliant, thanks, that's fantastic, I'll go and have a look at that. If you've got a problem with your pelvic floor, go onto the Squeezy app, download that. I'm not paid by any of these people to advertise.
We need to leave links to all of these in the podcast notes underneath where you're listening to right now.
ScotsCare, the charity helping to break the cycle of poverty some Scots find in London.
Can I ask you something about your website, the Let's Talk Menopause website? Is something you say quite high up in the website is not to write off HRT too quickly. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, a lot of people are still scared of HRT, even with all the education that goes on about it. Again, go to the Women's Health Concern website, the brilliant fact sheets on it there. And that's because of the 2 reports that came out in, I think it was 2002, 2012, where a lot of the facts have now been discredited on those. So it's getting people to reverse their opinion, and the media cause so much damage in that perspective. And I think, they have to be so careful, the media. I'm not criticizing anybody or any individual at all, but you have to be so careful when you post something on a newspaper or in a magazine to know that you're not scaremongering and just doing it for sensational purposes, because it doesn't help anybody. And the damage that it can cause can be just astounding, to be quite honest. You've got risks with any medication that you take. If you took out the leaflet that's in your paracetamol packet, you'd think, crikey, I'm not going to take that. If you take out the leaflet which is in your contraceptive pill packet, you think it's similar risks that are stated for HRT. But if I'm sitting chatting to somebody, chatting to a group of people in a talk, if you say, right, put your hand up if you've had the contraceptive pill, majority of people will put their hands up. But there's less risk because of the age factor. Obviously, your risk increases with age, obviously. But you have to take a measured approach, and HRT is the most valid treatment option for anybody going through the menopause, if you're able to take hormones, that is, and if it's medically right for you to be able to take that. You obviously have to go for medical assessment. You obviously have to see somebody who knows your full medical history and can assess you. But it is the most valid option for menopausal symptoms, and there are lots of different ways you can have it. You can have it orally, you can have it through the skin, transdermally. Lots of different options, but you just need to find a good prescriber and somebody who knows what they're talking about.
A question that kind of came up in our household was that this kind of it was either gel or patches that was offered to my wife. And I think one of Becky's worry was, how does one patch fit all, if you know what I mean? Because for you or, so-and-so down the road, it might work quite well, but for somebody else, it might not work quite well. Is there a way to tailor the amount of medication that's getting into your body?
That's a good question. And that's why there are all these different options. And that's why you have to understand how your body works and not to be frightened to go back to the person who's prescribing and saying, look, this really isn't working. Are there any other options? Because everybody's going to absorb medication at different rates and to different amounts. So if you've got a patch prescribed, and maybe it's just not sticking on your skin adequately enough. Maybe it doesn't suit your skin type. So then try the gel. But you've got to think of, right, okay, what's better for me? Some people hate the gel, hate the gel, hate the patches, and are much better with the oral, taking tablets. You just have to find one which suits you. It suits your physiology and works for you. And that's the most important thing. So getting individualized care is key. There's no blanket, right, this is the best option for all of you. You have to get individualized care.
I want to go back to your book, actually, and it's called Men, Let's Talk About Menopause. It is available on Amazon. I've got a copy and I've read it, and it's great. But what inspired you to write that? Were you thinking that they're just, men were the kind of thin end of the wedge? They just didn't know enough. And are you getting good results from it? Are mostly women buying it for their men, or do you find men are buying it as well?
Do you know, I don't know who buys it, whether it's men by women. Isn't that dreadful? Not done a survey. But what stimulated me to write it in the first place was literally the most basic thing is that anybody that I gave talks to, any group of people that I gave talk to when I started out, all the people on the talks were predominantly females, obviously, and without fail, every single talk, somebody would say, I wish my partner, I wish my husband, I wish my male colleagues could have this information as well. And so I thought, write a really short guide. And that's what it is. It's a guide. It's not meant to be a detailed, in-depth analogy of the menopause. It's meant to be a good, broad, comprehensive overview of the menopause, just to give you the basic facts to help you understand what potentially your partner or your wife or your colleague could be going through. And it's meant to be easy to read, which hopefully it is. And I made it purposely short because low attention span on something like the topic of the menopause, probably for the vast amount of people anyway, regardless of what gender. But it means you can dip in and out, and it's got, I put some useful links in at the end. And also one of the most important things at the end is you've got a symptom checker. So a symptom checker is really good for anybody to do. Keeping diaries of your symptoms, which sounds really nerdy for a lot of people, and you get rolling eyes on talks thinking, I'm not going to keep a boo diary or a menstrual diary, but you start to get to understand how your body's working. And so they're really good to do, but also a symptom checker for people to go, oh gosh, yeah, I actually have got that. And, oh, hang on a minute, yes, I'm experiencing that, and maybe that's not what I thought it was, but maybe it is the menopause. So just something simple like that can really start to focus people on their symptoms a little bit more.
Do you think we're in a good place moving forward, educationally and awareness-wise? I mean, it feels to me that we are going in the right direction. When I think about what my father probably knew about menopause, it was probably nothing at all, less than nothing, and I don't think it was probably even a man's place to know about these things back then. But it does seem to be within my peer group something that is around, and and we talk about it, and we're trying to do the best men can to get our heads around it, because we can be a bit thoughtless sometimes, can't we?
Well, I think it's definitely massively improved, but I think that's down to lots of different things. I think you do have the celebrity element, so you've got which has been really beneficial to get it at the forefront of people's minds, but also just social media in general. The age that we're living in, everything's just more accessible and more spoken about. And I know that my own children, who are all teenagers, or late 20s, the way that they talk about things, they're much more open about all sorts of different things, which we didn't talk about when I was younger. And I'm from Yorkshire, so I talked about anything basically. So they talk about an awful lot more. So I think that it's just the era that we live in, a lot of it, and that education is more accessible. But I think, within the workplace, the best results from a male perspective, from if you're going to use that gender for getting people to access this sort of information, if you've got a CEO, or if you've got senior management, you've got somebody within senior management, or the CEO who's male, who's got a partner or colleague who's experienced the menopause and had a poor experience, they're more likely to come on board and say, right, we're going to do a program on this, and that really does help.
That's brilliant, Ruth. Thank you for joining me today. It's been, educational and interesting, as it always is, talking to you. And I think you're shedding a light that needs to be shed in places. This figure still kind of baffle me. When we're talking about nearly 4 million people wanting to leave work, and 25% of companies only having a menopause policy, I hope it gets better. But I think people like you are certainly leading the vanguard. And thank you for talking to us today.
Well, very kind words. Thank you very much. And thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Marcus.
Speak to you soon.
Likewise.
The Saltire Donor Club is our monthly giving club. Could you spare a monthly donation of any amount to help homeless and vulnerable Scots? Visit our website to give monthly and join the Saltire Donor Club. It couldn't be easier, and it will make a difference to those struggling in London.